What's up, people? So, recently I got a new camera. Having a lot of fun with it. I even made a little review about the camera. You got it right here. It's the a7 Mark III. And by the time I was done editing that little review, I realized it wasn't so little. It's about 10 minutes of me babbling on and on and on. And if you want to see that, you can click up here and watch it, but I have a feeling a lot of you don't. So, for those of you who don't want to see a guy that you don't know flap his gums for 10 minutes, this is going to be the abridged version. Alright, so let's start this all out with the things I don't like, because they're really quite minimal. We can get through that pretty quick. Number one, there is no longer an HDMI cable lock on the side of this camera. And that's a big problem because these little cameras have micro HDMI ports. I don't know why they don't just put a full-size HDMI in here. There's plenty of room, especially now that they made the body bigger. But regardless, there used to be HDMI locks and that would protect your cable. Now you just have a bare micro HDMI cable hanging off the side of this, which is probably the weakest cable I've ever come across. I go through multiples per day sometimes if I'm not super careful. And fingers crossed, luckily I have not broken a HDMI port on one of these yet, on this or my a7S Mark II, but the cables, I go through them like candy, and this is just going to make that even worse. I'm going to have to find a cage or something, some kind of a solution to work with that. So that's number one, micro HDMI port with no cable lock. Thumbs down. Problem number two, also a minor one, but something I've had trouble with. It has to do with the button layout. Specifically, first, the record button, which is in the normal spot for 99% of other mirrorless or DSLR cameras, right next to the viewfinder here. I've had a Sony camera since the a7S Mark I, and the record button has always been here on the side of the grip, right next to your thumb. A lot of people hated it when they started coming out with that. I never really had a trouble with it, but I've gotten so used to it now, this is a change for me to have to switch over to pushing this kind of record button again. Especially having a7S Mark II as a B camera. Sometimes the record button's here, sometimes it's here. Depending on which camera I have in the hand at the moment, it changes. And you know, usually it's not a big deal, but sometimes with event work, you lose a couple seconds and you lost the moment. The other button I have trouble with is the AEL button right here on the side, which is exactly right where your thumb wants to fall when you're holding the camera in your hand. And I don't know why they put it there. There's so much room in between these two here, the AF on and the AEL button. They could have just moved it over a little bit and you'd have plenty of room for your thumb to rest, but they didn't. So I currently have that set up to zoom in focus assist, which is, you know, a function that's not going to affect my image in the end if I accidentally hit it while I'm recording. And for now it's working, and I guess I'll have to get used to it and modify how I hold the camera. But again, small issue, just something I don't like. Now on to the good things, and I'm not going to give a whole review because everybody in the world has already given you a review of the a7 III. What I'm going to talk about is a few features that I've heard no one talk about yet and that I love. And the first one of those is the white balance in movie mode. To my knowledge, this is the first Sony mirrorless camera ever to allow you to white balance in movie mode. Before, you'd have to go up to your dial here, turn it to photo mode, go to white balance, set your custom white balance, turn back to movie mode, and then you're good. Now, none of that hassle. Stay in movie mode, white balance, point at something white, custom balance, and you're set to go. That is a big deal because that saves so much time and so much hassle. And I don't know how they didn't fix it sooner. It's a simple software thing, but they finally got it right with this one, which is awesome. The second really awesome thing I haven't heard anyone else talk about yet has to do with the touchscreen autofocus on this thing. And I knew you could tap the screen to focus on different objects and rack focus, that kind of thing, but I didn't know that the functionality of the touchscreen focus changes based on the other settings in the camera. Specifically, I'm talking about center lock-on autofocus. If you have center lock-on autofocus set to on and you use the touchscreen to focus, it will lock on the object you tap and track it wherever it goes in the frame. Cool. If you have center lock on autofocus set to off and you tap on an object in the frame, it'll focus on that object, but then it will lock focus at that point and not track anything in the frame. This is really convenient if you have something that's pretty stationary in the frame, but you have a lot of action going on around it. Like say you want to lock on a single person standing in a crowd of people while other people are walking around. You can do that with this touchscreen and the center lock on autofocus turned off. So I currently have this little joystick here set to toggle my center lock on autofocus on and off to change the functionality of the touchscreen based on the situation I'm in. And it's working out really incredibly. Like, I knew the focus was going to be good on this, but it's surprising how good it really is. So yeah, those are the two things I've heard no one else talk about with this camera that I am loving. I knew it was going to be a great camera when I got it. I had high expectations, and you know, I was not disappointed at all. These other features are just icing on the cake that I hadn't heard about. And this is definitely going to stick with me for a while. It's going to be my A camera, and at least until the A7S Mark III comes out, but we'll see when that happens. Okay, sorry about that, but we had to run inside real quick because it just started raining out there, and I'm not about to sit outside with a brand new camera in the rain. So we're going to end the video indoors today. And if you're waiting for an A7 Mark III in the mail, I know the back order is getting pretty ridiculous for these things, but hopefully it gets here soon and you're able to look at all these new features it's got. And when you do, let me know in the comments below. Did this camera live up to your expectations for it? And what are your favorite features of the camera? How do they let you up your video production game from the previous cameras you've had? And I guess that's all I got for you today. If you really like the video, think about watching my other videos. Think about subscribing to the channel. But yeah, for now that's all I got, and I'm gonna go play with this little new toy for a while here and see if I figure out anything else new. Later.